65 was a movie distributed by Sony in 2023, where an alien crash lands on Earth sometime in the late Cretaceous and has to guide this little girl through a prehistoric landscape filled with dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, which are so inaccurate, Wikipedia simply lists them as the clade they might be from instead of any specific species, because trying to figure out what they're meant to be is that hard. Seriously, only 3 of the 15 dinosaurs are even remotely identifiable, and are still wildly inaccurate. Look at this giant drooling Legosuchus. If this guy was still alive, they could probably take Sony to court for defamation and win. Too bad they died out 170 years before this movie takes place. Ever since I watched this movie with my dad shortly after it came out, its designs have driven me insane. And I'm not exactly your typical Halo accuracy nerd. I actually like the Jurassic World movies. I think the dinosaurs' designs in it are charming in their own right, as inaccurate as they are. But, you know, I have standards too. So in this video, I'm going to be redesigning all the plot-relevant dinosaurs. However, just turning these guys into whatever real animal I think they look like the most feels kind of limiting to me, especially when the designs are this weird. So instead, I'm just going to turn these into entirely new dinosaurs that may or may not be from Earth. Sit back, relax, and enjoy me making fan art for one of my least favorite movies of all time. Going in order of on-screen appearance, first up is this, raptor thing. Wikipedia just calls them theropods, but they've got that iconic raptor claw thing going on. If they really are velociraptors, it's very funny how this, out of all movies, is the one movie to get their size accurate. Alright, so first things first, I gotta address the elephant in the room. These things have weird coloring. Like, are we sure these aren't already aliens? The inside of this guy's mouth is blue! Aside from that, though, I didn't have very much to go off of this guy's facial structure. I just kind of rise off the shrink wrapping and ended up with this. I also added a few random details to make its head a little bit more distinct, and just generally make it look less like a lazy and accurate dinosaur and more like an intentional creature design. Next up, I gave this guy some darker fur, as well as a mane inspired by the sparse Jurassic World 3 style raptor feathers that I was going down his neck and back. I really struggled eyeballing a lot of the details on this thing, because the scene I'd taken my screenshots from had this thing moving around like crazy. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that this specific dinosaur was going to appear again much later on in a way that would have actually been easier to screenshot. Oh well. Anyway, so it took the fact that for whatever reason this thing was given blue insides, and decided to make that a consistent thing of all the dinosaurs I'm going to design today. This specific design sort of laid out the groundwork for all the others, as a lot of things I spitballed here I decided to keep consistent across the designs. At some point, I tried to incorporate the sort of plucked turkey look this thing had in other spots, but I didn't like how it looked, so I very quickly scrapped that idea. Specific stills from the movie I took as references, it looked like this raptor only had 2 claws on its hands, like that one spore part for whatever reason. So I went ahead and gave this guy only 2 toes on each foot as well. I also stylized the scales on its lower legs as these stripes you see here. What are they? I don't know, but they look cool. The colors had to be my favorite thing about this dinosaur to work with. For whatever reason, the creature designer gave these guys red and green scales, which also happen to be complementary colors. Of course, the claws in this thing were also green for whatever reason, so I totally made sure to include those in my design as well. You might have noticed I gave this guy a really weird looking underbelly. My idea for this is that this lineage of vertebrate-like creatures from the setting all have these tough, almost shell-like undersides thanks to a common ancestor. I like to imagine this shell is flexible and maybe extends inside the animal in some sort of way as well. Maybe it's part of the skeleton of this creature and makes up a lot of their bones, or sort of convergently evolving the hollowed-out bones real-life theropods have. I of course gave this to every other dinosaur I designed in this video, if anything because I found it really fun to draw. And there we have it, the first redesign is done! I honestly had a blast creating this design. It's definitely still my favorite out of the whole batch. I like to imagine these guys are solitary predators that fill a similar niche to modern wildcats like lynx and whatnot. Also very territorial. Anyways, it's on to the next dinosaur. This, weird Ankylosaurus Rex freak baby. This might actually be the unsung worst design in this movie, generally. Like, what's even going on here? What's this even supposed to be? Like, either way, the first thing I noticed about this guy is its paddle tail. Now, I don't know about you, but that to me screams, I'm a swimmer! Ideally, not in a painted tire, but just that one detail, combined with all the spikes on its back, gave me an idea to make this guy semi-aquatic and very croc-like. Why, but I really ran at the slight bumps on this thing's head above its eyes, turning them into like these kind of Taurus-like horns, which I changed the design of a lot while drawing. Anyways, I should probably clarify that I'm drawing an adult of this species, not a baby, purely for my sanity's sake. I noticed the bumps going down the baby's back were slightly bigger on the sides rather than the middle, so I made sure to incorporate that with my design spikes as well, turning them into these two distinct ridges instead. I like to imagine when this creature is submerged, these ridges look like rocks in the water. Yes, this guy's body plan was heavily inspired by Irritator, specifically its Jurassic World 3 evolution design, which I adore. I really jumped back and forth with what I wanted this guy's diet to be, since the species' role in the ecosystem in this movie was super vague. At first I wanted to make it an herbivore, but seeing its body plan and the role I was thinking up for it, I eventually settled for an omnivorous diet. I like to imagine this species feeds mainly on fish, but heavily supplements its diet with various plant life around its swampy habitat. Coloring was very straightforward and boring for this thing. It's kind of just gray in the movie. So I picked it a darker teal and gave it this orca-inspired pattern for its face just to spice it up a bit. And there we go, another one done. And now we've got the critters that killed the aforementioned baby dinosaur. I'm not the only person who felt that scene kind of amounted to nothing, am I? It leaves no lasting impact on the characters or plot and just kind of introduces a suggestion of danger. It doesn't even show off an interesting dinosaur or new threat. It's just this baby animal being slaughtered on screen for cheap shock value, I guess. Then again, on second thought, none of this movie amounts to anything because it's just boring as hell. What was I talking about again? Alright, the dinosaurs that killed whatever that thing was. These little, Trudon wannabes, maybe? They're definitely the closest to actually accurate dinosaurs we have in this movie, which, it's really sad we have to settle with that. They did give these things actual patterns, though, so I of course had a field day of those. I just noticed they had this weird kind of bulge or something in their bottom mouth, so instead of fixing that anatomy mistake, I decided to incorporate it as a pouch that the animal can inflate as a mating display or something, much like some real modern-day dinosaurs. To extra enforceable bird look with some feathers around the neck and some more prominent display feathers on its head and back. I like to imagine these would have some sort of sexual dimorphism, if the other sex even lacking fancy displays or having even more of them. I of course kept the stripes these fellas had going down their neck, and also decided to add a bit of red to their faces. I realize now in hindsight that red was probably just blood, but this movie, with its inaccurate Skullby Island wannabe dinosaurs, I gotta take every color besides gray and brown I can get here. I also almost forgot to include this, blame the heat. I gave these guys these stripes on their tails because when a few scenes were even visible and not super blurry, you can see them leaning forward way too much when they're walking, and it puts their tails right up in the air. So I kind of like to interpret that as sort of like signaling with their tails almost, and like their tail be very flexible and have these stripes on. Anyways, you get what I mean. And here we are. It's not portrayed well since I've cut all the moments where I erased something over and over again out, but this dinosaur was easily the one I spent the most time on. They were just so generous and gave me so much to work with for this one. And I was having a blast, especially with those colors. Those are nice colors. And now we're on to the Legosuchus, only a name. While taking reference screenshots, it suddenly dawned upon me that these guys are actually very similar to Mutodons in the head. I took that triangular shape and went ahead and turned that into a beak. Everything else with this thing's head was a bit of a nightmare to figure out, and I still can't even tell you why. Either way, I decided to keep a sort of cat-like appearance to this thing. Not sure why, maybe it's the fact they were climbing trees and such. I was going to incorporate a lot more arboreal traits into these, but my wrist was just saying no. for instance, was one of those traits. It was a good idea, but the body just didn't fully match it, and again, my wrist was killing me too much to really change it. These fellas had this sort of bumpy ridge going down their back, and I really liked that for whatever reason, so I kept it. That definitely did not help my wrist situation. One idea I had going into this was turning the droolings into a sort of venom that this thing spits at its prey or competitors, but I was unsure how to visually incorporate that into the design. My first idea was a visible poison gland, but eventually I traded that idea for a cobra-like hood. It's not exactly like a cobra's hood, it's smaller and can't be moved as much, being more of a mating display than anything else. I also didn't have a whole lot to go with for this thing's colors, it just being kind of plain black with a light underbelly in the movie. You won't see it here during the speed paint since I did it during the shading process, which, by the way, I've cut out for the sake of my video not being like 2 hours, but I eventually just added some leopard-like spots to make the design a bit more visually interesting. And here we are! I'm not super proud of how this turned out. I could have done a lot more, and I still had a lot of ideas I didn't get to incorporate it, but my wrist was killing me. I drew all these during at least a 3-hour marathon where I was just watching YouTube in the background, so... Okay, so I'm just gonna be brutally honest here. I only had 2 ideas for this thing. It hardly shows up in the movie, and it just kind of looks like a featherless Oviraptor, and it's ghastly white in a cave. If this was the only dinosaur in the movie, maybe then I would have made something a bit crazier for this, but I'd already drawn 4 dinosaurs before I got to this one, and I was tired. One thing I did know I was going to do for this guy was make it blind, though. It being pale white clearly suggests its cave is its natural habitat, and most of the time, if not only when something loses its pigment to the depths, it loses its eyes too. No need for those in pure darkness. I also made its ears much larger, having a cone shape surrounding them. Its ears being the circle shape you see me drawing near the back of its head. Also these whiskers on various parts of its body to help it sense its way around narrower spaces. I changed just about nothing. There's really not that much wiggle room when it comes to creatures with a specific niche and color. Pigment just really isn't needed in the absence of light. Once again, I don't really have that much to say about this one. Designing a dinosaur that lives in a cave was super fun, though. I definitely have to play with that idea again. Alright, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. The Quad Rex. I've seen a lot of debate online about what this dinosaur is actually meant to be while researching this video. Some people swear by it being a Facilosuchus, but those things are much smaller and literally only have being quadrupedal in common with this thing. This thing was meant to be a quadrupedal T-Rex. Maybe not explicitly, but definitely visually. I guess having a T-Rex was too boring for the people behind this movie, so they had to make up their own new, scarier thing and try to pretend they didn't just make a quadrupedal T-Rex while hiding the quadrupedal T-Rex shaped lump in their movie. Anyways, being reminded of this thing is what inspired me to make this video to begin with. I still remember how absolutely baffled I was watching this thing chase after the main protagonist. I was especially confused because I didn't realize this was a third separate dinosaur from the two Rexes that it just attacked. I genuinely thought this was one of the Rexes, and it got back up and was so pissed about its mate dying that it grew front legs out of pure rage just to be scarier during the chase scene. It was literally only when rewatching that scene while making this video that I realized this was actually a completely separate dinosaur. For this design, though, I'm going to pretend that isn't the case and make my dinosaur an actual biquad. I have no clue how something like this would even evolve, let alone what hyper-specific circumstances would even begin to create something like this, so we're just going to suspend our disbelief for that on that front of it. Nature's created weirder anyways. I guess I should get to explaining how the front legs work for this thing, then. Most of the time, these front legs are held up to keep them out of the way, I guess, and this thing just walks around like a Rex would. However, when the time arises, it can go down on all fours and gallop like what's seen in the movie. But these front legs evolved from theropod-like arms, and it's not super optimal, which is why our biped protagonist was actually able to outrun such a large quadruped. Which is why this thing is an ambush predator, not something that chases down its prey like a cheetah. Unless it's desperate, I guess. Once again, this movie has produced another completely gray design. So for the colors, I just kind of picked a color scheme I thought would look nice and improvised from there. And here's my finished design for the Quad Rex. I had so much fun making this one. I was like, when I was designing all the other dinosaurs, I was just waiting to design this one. I was just so excited. I'm super happy with how this turned out. And that's all my redesigns for the movie 65. But wait, there's more. One more design. And what design could it be, you're wondering? Maybe it's one of the T-Rexes that you said you weren't going to draw earlier. No! It's the actual fucking alien! I think it really says a lot about me that in spite of all the horrible dinosaur designs in this movie, the number one thing to immediately take me out of the film and make me hate it from the first 2 minutes is the fact our alien protagonist is just completely unchanged Adam Driver. Now, don't get me wrong, Adam Driver's very handsome, but he's a human, and humans aren't aliens. Since this movie didn't even begin to try and make him alien, I'm basically starting from scratch for this one. Thankfully, I have experience of turning humans into adjacent-looking alien species. Look no further than my Marum from my book series Cavacita, free in the description, by the way. I did have a few ideas, mainly keeping him relatively humanoid, since I think he's supposed to be that whole ancient aliens type thing. I don't know, that's just what Wikipedia said. I also wanted to make him mammalian looking, and eventually settled on this weasel-like look. A lot of dinosaur media features a mammalian human ancestor as a central focus at some point, so this design's kind of a nod to that. I think Ice Age 3 might have given me a subconscious bias, though. I'm not beating the buck wild allegations with this one. Fucking love that guy, hated they portrayed him in the 5th movie.
Never
And there is my final design. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, or at the very least checking out my website where I link to all my socials. Please feel free to tell me what you think in the comments. Bye-bye!